For nearly 3 centuries, longships carrying warriors from the far north terrorized coastlines, founded kingdoms, and reached lands no European had ever seen. This is the story of the Vikings. The story begins in Scandinavia, a land of fjords, forests, and harsh winters, home to independent farming communities who lived by the sea and depended on it for survival. By the late 8th century, population growth, political fragmentation, and advances in shipbuilding pushed Scandinavian warriors to look outward, toward the wealthy, poorly defended coasts of Europe. Their key advantage was the longship, fast, flexible, and shallow enough to sail up rivers, yet sturdy enough to cross open ocean, giving Viking raiders reach no army could match. In 793 AD, Norse raiders struck the monastery of Lindisfarne off the English coast, slaughtering monks and looting treasures. Chroniclers called it a warning from God. Historians call it the start of the Viking Age. Raids spread quickly across the British Isles, Ireland, and the Frankish coast. Undefended monasteries, rich in silver and gold, made easy and repeated targets for opportunistic Norse fleets. By the 860s, raiding gave way to conquest. The Great Heathen Army landed in England, and within years, Norse warlords controlled large portions of Anglo-Saxon territory. King Alfred of Wessex fought the Vikings to a standstill, eventually striking a treaty that divided England between Anglo-Saxon and Norse rule, an area that became known as the Danelaw. Vikings were never just raiders. Many came to settle, farming captured land, intermarrying with local populations, and gradually blending Norse and native cultures across the British Isles. Norse settlers pushed into the North Atlantic, colonizing the Faroe Islands and, around 870 AD, Iceland, establishing farms on a volcanic island previously uninhabited by permanent settlers. Eric the Red, exiled from Iceland after a killing, sailed further west and founded a Norse colony in Greenland around 985 AD, naming the icy land to attract more settlers. Eric's son, Leif Erikson, went even further, reaching the coast of North America around 1000 AD, nearly 5 centuries before Columbus, in a region the Norse called Vinland. Norse settlement in North America did not last. Conflict with indigenous peoples and the sheer distance from Greenland made the colony unsustainable, and it was abandoned within years. To the east, Norse traders and warriors, known as the Rus, pushed along Russian rivers, establishing trade routes toward Constantinople and founding early states that would grow into medieval Russia. Viking traders dealt in furs, amber, walrus ivory, and enslaved captives, exchanging goods for vast quantities of Islamic silver coins flowing north from the trade networks of the Middle East. Some Norse warriors served the Byzantine emperor directly, forming the elite Varangian Guard in Constantinople, a prestigious and lucrative posting for ambitious young Scandinavians. Viking society was organized around chieftains, free farmers, and enslaved workers called thralls. Assemblies known as things allowed free men to settle disputes and make communal decisions. Norse religion centered on gods like Odin, Thor, and Freya, and a rich mythology of Valhalla, Ragnarok, and a cosmic tree connecting 9 worlds, later preserved in medieval Icelandic sagas. The Norse wrote in runes, an alphabet carved into wood, stone, and bone, used for everything from memorial stones to trade records to simple everyday graffiti. Viking navigators sailed without magnetic compasses, relying instead on the sun, stars, wildlife, and accumulated knowledge of currents to cross vast stretches of open ocean with remarkable accuracy. Norse women held more legal rights than many of their European counterparts, able to own property, request divorce, and in some cases manage farms and trade while men were away raiding. In the 11th century, the Danish king Cnut the Great briefly ruled a North Sea empire spanning England, Denmark, and Norway, one of the most powerful rulers in Viking Age Europe. Gradually, Scandinavian kings converted to Christianity, often for political advantage, and used the new religion to centralize power and suppress rival chieftains across their territories. In France, Norse settlers were granted land along the Seine in exchange for peace, founding what became Normandy, a duchy that fused Norse and French culture into something new. Generations later, their descendant William, Duke of Normandy, invaded England in 1066, defeating King Harold at Hastings and becoming William the Conqueror, forever reshaping English history. Norman adventurers, also of Viking descent, carved out kingdoms in southern Italy and Sicily, blending Norse ambition with Mediterranean politics far from their Scandinavian origins. By the 12th century, the Viking Age was fading. Stronger, more centralized kingdoms across Europe made raiding far riskier, while Scandinavian rulers increasingly favored diplomacy and trade. Many historians mark the end of the Viking Age at the Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066, where the Norwegian king Harald Hardrada was killed attempting one last invasion of England. Far to the west, the Norse colony in Greenland struggled against a cooling climate and dwindling trade, and by the 15th century it had vanished entirely, its fate still debated by historians. Much of what we know comes from Icelandic sagas, written centuries later, blending real history with legend, alongside archaeology that continues to reshape our understanding of Viking life. Discoveries like the Oseberg ship burial and the settlement at Lens aux Meadows in Newfoundland have provided physical proof of Viking craftsmanship and their reach into North America. Norse influence lingers in the English language itself. Words like sky, window, knife, and even the pronoun they trace their roots back to Old Norse brought by Viking settlers. Genetic studies show Norse ancestry scattered widely across the British Isles, Iceland, and parts of Russia, a lasting biological trace of centuries of settlement, trade, and intermarriage. Viking imagery has become a permanent fixture of popular culture, from horned helmets that historians say were never actually worn, to modern films, games, and television reimagining their world. Modern Denmark, Norway, and Sweden trace their national identities partly back to this era, with Viking heritage celebrated in museums, festivals, and reconstructed longships across the region. Modern historians increasingly emphasize the Vikings as traders, explorers, and settlers as much as raiders, a complex people whose violence was only one part of a much larger story. From burned monasteries to newly discovered continents, the Viking Age reshaped Europe and beyond, leaving a legacy still visible in language, DNA, and imagination nearly 1,000 years later.